18th recruit is added to Iowa football's class of 2022. And what do you know? It's another Phil Parker special. More on that in a moment. A reminder to anybody watching our videos for the first time, please subscribe if you have not already done so. Hit the little subscribe button below this video and like the video as well. Always appreciated. So, some big news on this Sunday for Iowa's class of 2022. No, the early signing day does not mean that the class is wrapped up. Of course, it is an early signing day for a reason, although most players do sign by that date in December. But Iowa awarded really kind of a steal out of this class. Deshaun Lee, three-star cornerback Deshaun Lee out of Belleville, Michigan, commits on this Sunday. According to Rivals, he visited Iowa just over the last couple of days, and he's got a good offer list. If you look up and down, and I do want to talk a little bit about his tape, and I always put a disclaimer to this right off the bat. This is a highlight reel, right? We don't have games. I'm not traveling the country watching these players. But if you watch Deshaun Lee's highlight tape, you're going to see a guy who's got really good ball skills. That's the first thing that really pops off the charts. And, of course, he played a lot of wide receiver. He returned in special teams formations, and but he's got good ball skills. He wears the number 3 in high school. So, of course, the first comparison that I could come up with, and he kind of resembles him, I guess, from a stature standpoint, would be Tyrone Tracy. Of course, Tyrone played running back in high school, eventually, of course, converted to wide receiver. But it's interesting with Deshaun Lee. He's got really good speed. He's 5'11". I think he's listed around 170, 173 or so, according to 247 Sports. Which, by the way, kudos to Rivals. I checked 247 Sports earlier today, and I did not see Iowa even on their offer list. Of course, they had offered, but 247 Sports maybe a tad behind. Always give credit to Tom Kakert, Blair Sanderson, and the guys over at Rivals. But yeah, Phil Parker, he knows how to identify talent in that defensive backfield. I think we can all agree on that. You look up and down Deshaun Lee's offer list. So this is what Iowa does. They grab cornerbacks out of the Midwest, and they groom them into really good football players. Desmond King is a perfect example of that. They've also had some success down in Texas with the likes of Matt Hankins, Josh Jackson, another guy that Iowa, of course, had success with, recruiting him from Texas. But there's been lots of guys from the Midwest. You think about Desmond King. Certainly, you look at a guy like Michael Ojemudia. Guys who are from the Midwest who ended up being success stories here and went on to play in the NFL. Michael Ojemudia for the Broncos. Of course, we know Desmond King has been really good over the course of his career in the league. But I guess my point is Iowa knows how to hit the Midwest, and specifically behind Phil Parker. And look, we can talk about star ratings. Deshaun Lee is considered a 3-star by Rivals. You're looking at 247 Sports and their ratings. They've got him, their composite, which is made up of, I believe, ESPN, Rivals, and 247 Sports. It comes cumulatively to being a 3-star. We can read into that, but I'll be honest, does it really matter, especially with the defensive backfield? Certainly, when you have a higher star rating, that's gonna pop off the chart, right? But let's run through his offers. So Deshaun Lee was offered by the likes, according to 247 Sports, likes of Akron, Bowling Green, Central Michigan, Eastern Kentucky, Grand Valley State. Southern Miss did not offer, had interest. So some MAC schools in there, Group of 5, and even FCS, but there were some Power 5 offers as well. Pitt offered. Of course, they were in a New Year's Six bowl game this year. Of course, Kentucky, they offered, beat Iowa in a bowl game, and then Syracuse also offered. So some high major interest here for Deshaun Lee. But again, going back to Iowa's pedigree with defensive backs, I don't think you read too much into that. Again, Desmond King, I think he was a 2 to 3-star recruit. If I recall, Micah Hyde was a 0-star or a 2-star coming out of high school. And some of these guys got converted over. So, don't read into it too much. Look at a guy like Dallas Cradith. He was a 4-star recruit out of Missouri, and I give Dallas a lot of credit. I've talked about him on this show because I'm impressed with his stick-to-itiveness. He was recruited. Let me read you some of the schools that Dallas Cradith was recruited by. Duke, Illinois, and I'm talking all these schools offered him. Indiana, Iowa State, Kentucky, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Missouri, Purdue. I mean, the list goes on. Wisconsin. And he has not really seen the field much. He has just not seen the field much, and I believe this next year he'll be a senior. He's not entered the portal. I mean, that is stick-to-itiveness, and that is having a good attitude. But my point is, he was a four-star recruit and probably hasn't materialized at safety the way that Iowa necessarily envisioned. Now, maybe he can get some time with the departure of Jack Kerner and Dane Belton. Perhaps he could slide into a cash position. Certainly, they're loaded, though, coming in this coming recruiting class behind Xavier Wampa primarily. But Deshaun Lee on tape, if you look at him on tape, he's rangy. I know he's only 5'11", but his ball skills playing receiver are clearly evident on tape. He's got really good speed. And by the way, the ball skills thing, that's just something that Phil Parker obviously holds in a high regard. I mean, he wants guys who are able to catch the ball and make plays, and certainly Iowa's had good success with defensive backs who could return punts. I know Josh Jackson wasn't the best at returning punts, but Desmond King and Greg Maben have been absolutely spectacular, even in the NFL doing so. I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Lee ends up returning punts or kicks for Iowa at some point. Again, lots of guys do that in high school and end up playing a different position or not taking on those duties in college. So you can never be dogmatic about that. Certainly Xavier Wampa has proven himself at the high school level as well. But again, good speed from Deshaun Lee. As far as coverage is concerned, it seems like he's got good athleticism. I'd love to see what his 40 is. Again, you're looking at highlights. You take everything with a grain of salt. But it reminds me a little bit of a Tyrone Tracy. But again, you just can't stress this enough. Phil Parker knows how to develop these guys. Obviously, he's not enrolling early. I think Iowa has 4 guys who are on campus right now: Xavier Wampa, T.J. Hall, Caden Crawford, and Brian Allen Jr. Those guys are all enrolled early and all on campus as far as I'm aware. But this will be a late signee, and again, it's just another addition to what has been a very, very solid class at defensive back already. Now, the question is, does Iowa see him staying at corner? I think they probably do. Phil Parker recruited him. Now, I understand sometimes that can be based upon region. Certain coaches recruit certain regions. But once he gets here, I mean, he could be moved around. Again, he's got good enough ball skills, and Iowa has shown the willingness to play receivers who aren't taller than 5'10", 5'11". Arlen Bruce being a perfect example. Nico Reganey, Tyrone Tracy. So we'll see. He's going to have an opportunity to be used where he's best fitted, and that may not be apparent until he gets here this fall or beyond. But Iowa increasing depth at defensive back, which is always a good thing for an Iowa football team that prides itself on takeaways, prides itself on good secondary play. And so, again, a positive development as 3-star recruit out of Belleville, Michigan. Deshaun Lee, listed at 5'11", 173, according to 247 Sports, has committed to the Iowa Hawkeyes after a visit. So, great news for Iowa fans. Always good to talk recruiting. And certainly stick right here to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll continue to provide updates anytime. There's offers, there's interest. Follow me on Twitter as well, From the Hawkeye, at From the Hawkeye on Twitter, From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Twitter, for continuous updates on offers, commits, etc. And of course, follow us daily, really, for any type of updates or breaking news information in Hawkeye Nation. And of course, our postgame show with Coach Gary Close. We'll be back live with that tomorrow night, Monday night, after the Iowa-Penn State game. So happy to talk to you this afternoon. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will talk to you tomorrow night.